To understand charisma and personal magnetism, it's important to realize that not all personal magnetism is made the same, and the energy that you radiate determines the way people perceive and interact with you. My personal magnetism may not be the same as yours, since there are different qualities of personal magnetism. This doesn't need a big stretch of logic to understand, but let's dive a bit more deeply into this concept. If we have three magnetic persons, let's say Bill Clinton, the Dalai Lama, and Scarlett Johansson, no one can deny that all three are magnetic and influence a large number of people. Yet, their personal magnetism is completely different. Bill Clinton has a different power of influence and attraction than Dalai Lama or Scarlett Johansson. Not worse, or better, or less or more influential, just different. If we think about it, Bill Clinton's charisma was always considered very friendly, down-to-earth and empathic style, a true communicator and politician. He is an icon for the power of communication and empathy. And when people are talking with him, they just feel like they have his whole undivided attention. Then we have the Dalai Lama, although he might not also have the same qualities, but he stands out due to his own spiritual strength. Many people who meet him just feel a deep dive into their own spirituality. He makes people really go inside and think about their own spiritual roots, regardless of the religion. He is an icon for true spiritual power and compassion. And lastly, Scarlett Johansson, that she just has a great sexual power. She has been considered one of the sexiest women alive for several years in several magazines, and she is constantly cast for roles where intense sexual magnetism is needed. Anyone who looks at her is bound to feel this sexual urge. For each of these three personalities, they have their own specific personal magnetism different from others. Yet, they are all influential and magnetic. Now your main question might be why and how to cultivate a specific type of magnetism. And please, take these three characters at face value. This is just an example to explain a concept. I have never personally met any of them, and so my assessment about their own specific personal magnetism might not be 100% correct. If it helps, you can also think about your own examples of real-life personal magnetism. Why does the Dalai Lama has a different type of personal magnetism and elicits different reactions than Bill Clinton or Scarlett Johansson? It might seem a silly question since all their personalities are obviously different and people's expectations are naturally different. But we can look at this from several different perspectives and all of them will have accurate answers. But let's look at it a bit more closely from the perspective of personal magnetism. The Dalai Lama is the most obvious example since he has consciously and painstakingly trained his mind to become very compassionate. Using Buddhist techniques of meditation and mind control, he trained his mind to constantly emit compassionate energy, and because of this, his personal magnetism is very spiritual and compassionate. A big part, if not all, of his mind's contents are turned towards compassion and spirituality. He has eliminated many of his own mind problems and toxicity. So his mind is infused with all the mind contents that he cultivates. As such, each time that he speaks, moves, touch someone, he is facing this interaction as a representation of what's happening in his mind, which is pure compassion and awareness. So his personal magnetism couldn't be of any other way. But most mind training isn't done this systematically and consciously by magnetic individuals. In most cases, they already have a mind that is naturally magnetic, with a certain quality, like for example, empathy and communication for Bill Clinton. The quality of his mind is very focused on interactions and how to establish great interactions. Maybe it was because both of his biological father and stepfather were salesmen. And so his energy developed from early age in a way that attracts others to himself, since his mind had a specific quality of magnetic communication. Scarlett Johansson is similar, even though she is obviously endowed with beauty physical gifts. Her magnetism, unlike the Dalai Lama and Bill Clinton, is purely sexual magnetism, so a completely different quality from the other two. She is magnetic only in sexuality and not so much in compassion, for example. Even so, she has the genetics of good looks. There are plenty of beautiful women who don't have sexual magnetism. There are plenty of beautiful women who don't elicit a powerful sexual reaction in those around me. So just think about your own situation. Maybe at some point of your life, you had a pure sexual attraction to someone who wasn't even the most beautiful woman that you've been with, or you haven't even spoken with her, vice versa, of course, for women, and attraction for men. Some people just elicit this kind of sexual quality of personal magnetism, which is called sexual magnetism. And Scarlett Johansson is certainly one of them. She unconsciously trained her mind to accept, feel, and look for sexuality. She feels very comfortable in a sexual role and sexual energy overall, and so her mind has a very sexual quality. I assume this was similar development to Bill Clinton, and it was partial conscious work due to her own profession, and partial unconscious work since she already had some to begin with. But that's why it's a common myth that most charismatic people were born with charisma. In fact, their mind was predisposed to some aspects of personal magnetism more so than the overall population, and then, with some further development in projection, they become very magnetic. But you won't necessarily need this mind predisposition as long as you train it to have the kind of quality that you want to transmit. Above all, the quality of the mind of those three people were transformed either consciously or unconsciously to be compassion in case of the Dalai Lama, empathic for Bill Clinton, and sexual for Scarlett Johansson. And then, due to their own work, they train in its projection, creating an individual quality of personal magnetism. But the projection and overall magnetism was only possible because their mind quality was already accustomed to sexual energy, in case of Scarlett Johansson, for example. If she hadn't accepted the feelings of sexual energy that she had inside of her, if her mind wasn't unconsciously or consciously trained in sexuality, projection of it wouldn't be possible. Which seems only logic, yet many people still try to get the external techniques to work before they assume the necessary mind state for it. How can you project sexuality if you don't accept its effects and energy inside of yourself? The first step is always to train your mind to have the quality that you want to transmit, to accept the kind of energy that you want to transmit. You cannot become a sexual magnetism capable of eliciting sexual reactions in everything that you come across if you first don't discover and accept your own sexual energy and your own feelings of sexual energy. So personal magnetism always starts inside of yourself. It starts in accepting and developing a quality in your mind of what you want to transmit. If you don't know what is the empathic state, then how can you be empathic? Can you be empathic with yourself or sexual? Can you recognize and accept and feel good in the feelings of sexuality inside of yourself? Sexually magnetic persons do it unconsciously. But if neither you or me had this luxury, we have to learn it. Only then, after you discover this very own mind quality and actually focus in projecting it, your mind already has this quality. Then project it through the gaze, speech, touch, movement is only a natural consequence that can be much easily trained. This is exactly the kind of work that we do in Charisma School. Mind training into several mind qualities like sexual energy and its own projection to the outside world in a way that you can radiate with enough power to be felt by everyone around you. For more information and training courses on charisma and personal and sexual magnetism, visit charismaschool.com.